people starting to log in. So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today for conversations with 3 of the UK's top boarding schools. We're very excited to have this panel of amazing admissions representatives here with us today. And I'll just let everyone kind of settle into the Zoom call for a minute, and then we'll get started. Yeah, let's see what's happening. Once I see the numbers stabilize, then I'll start. All right, it looks like the number has sort of stabilized. I'm going to get started. And I just want to welcome everyone again to our, sort of discussion with the UK, 3 top UK boarding schools. We are the Red Pen based in Mumbai, India. I think people on this call are from all over the world. And of course, the schools are interested in students from all over the world. So whether you're in India or whether you're somewhere else, I think this will be relevant to whatever information you're trying to learn about the schools. The Red Pen is an education consultancy that does help families with decisions around the boarding school process. We also help with undergraduate, postgraduate, MBA admissions. So we're sort of a full service education consultancy based in Mumbai. Like I said, we've been around for 10 years. We have a very big team of counselors and other support who help us sort of, like I said, who help us support all the applicants at these different levels. So different teams, different people, very diverse, lots going on. But we do our best to meet the needs of different families that come to us. So I think that's us. My name is Kim Dixit. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the Red Pen. And like I said, we've been around for 10 years. And Aarti Anand is with us from the Red Pen also. She is manages our boarding school service line, so helps all the families and answers all the questions when it comes to that. And while we're talking to UK schools today, we also do help families with boarding schools all over the world. So US, UK, Switzerland, and any place else where they exist. First, I'd like to introduce Arabella Stuart, who is the Director of Admissions at the Sevenoaks School. So thank you, Arabella, for joining us today. Next, I'd like to introduce Niall Hamilton from Marlborough College. He is the Director of Admissions there. And finally, Guy Bodger, Admissions Registrar from Rugby College. So I would again like to thank all the 3 of you for joining us today. It's really, really such a pleasure to have you directly speaking to our families and students. I think from there, I will ask you, and I'll start with Arabella, to please introduce your schools. So each school will take about 5 to 10 minutes, I guess, introducing the school and talking about them, and then we'll get into some question and answer, which Aarti will moderate. I am going to, for the sake of reducing distractions, I'm going to turn my camera off, and we'll have a Q&A session, like I said, a question session with Aarti, and also a Q&A at the end. Correct, Aarti?
Yeah, I'm sorry, but Neil, can I just ask you to, yeah, okay, actually, no, I was just having trouble going into my Zoom, but here, I'm right here, so let's get started. Right, Arabella, there we go. Let's just do a slideshow. There we go.
Lovely, thank you very much. So yes, I'm Arabella Stuart, and I've been at Sevenoaks since 1987, a long time, teaching biology for some of that time. I ran a boarding house. My children both went through, and my husband even taught there. He was head of philosophy. So really, if you cut me in half, you'll see Sevenoaks School written through me. Now, let me give you an introduction to Sevenoaks. Briefly, we're a very different kind of a school. So if we can have the next slide. We were founded in 1432, a very ancient foundation. However, the school was reinvented in the 1950s and is now a sort of modern, forward-thinking, co-educational boarding and day school. It's known for being a pioneering IB school, now one of the most successful globally, with a very diverse student body, and it styles itself as down to earth and grounded. Now, this slide shows you where we are. Sevenoaks is that red dot. We're half an hour from Gatwick Airport and an hour from Heathrow. And on the train, you can get to London Bridge in about 20 minutes, actually. However, the next slide show you the countryside around Sevenoaks, and you'll see this is my favourite bluebell wood, that we are in an environment which is very far away from London, sort of physically. It's beautiful countryside in Kent surrounding the town. The campus itself, which you'll see on this next slide, is a bit like a village. It's bordered by a 100-acre deer park to the sort of top of that picture, which is a lovely place, Noel Park, to walk and run in. And just to the left of us is Sevenoaks Town. So Sevenoaks Town, which you'll see next, is a small market town. You can cross it in 5 minutes. It's very safe. It's got all the shops you'd need, a wonderful independent bookshop, Waitrose, which is the sort of top supermarket chain, Boots, Smiths, or anything that you would need, really. In fact, in lockdown, we did discover we never needed to leave Sevenoaks. And it is a town that lots of people have flooded out to from London during the pandemic. It was the #1 destination. So it's a great place to live. The campus itself has been redeveloped in the last 20 years. We do have some older buildings. So this one is Old School, which is now our maths department. And then our most recent building is this one, the Science and Technology department, which opened just 2 years ago, and which I'm particularly fond of because for 30 years I taught biology in prefabricated huts. And now I get this state-of-the-art accommodation, and it's absolutely delightful. It's a really inspirational building to teach and learn in. The campus itself is very green and open, feels very grown up, a bit like a sort of university campus. Now, Sevenoaks is known as being academically a fast-paced school, by which I mean that we go very quickly through the syllabus. So there's a lot of time for discussion and debate. It's a particularly good, mutually respectful relationship between the staff and the students. And we aim to develop attributes like critical thinking, creative problem solving, empathy, and teamwork, which we know are very important for success in the adult life. The results are really excellent, and you can see those on the website. But I would like to stress that Sevenoaks is not a hothouse, and a lot of time has been devoted to developing the roundedness of the students. So Artie, if you can show the next slide, Schoolhouse magazine has said after investigation that Sevenoaks is conspicuously not an exam factory. So that takes me on to the co-curricular activities, and all of the 3 schools that you'll be hearing from today have absolutely outstanding co-curricular programs. So I'm not going to labour the point, but there's always a play in rehearsal and some student-led drama too. There are 50 concerts a year in this concert hall. There's a multimedia art department with photography, filmmaking, sculpture, and so on. There's a huge range of different sports, from team sports like football and hockey with pre-season training, through to more individual sports like squash, badminton, cross-country running, this in Noel Park where you host a big run every year, and swimming and tennis, to name a few. So the idea then about the sport at Sevenoaks is for there to be a lot of choice. We don't want to force people to do things they really dislike for all of their time. We want to instill enjoyment and fitness for life. There are lots of clubs, including kit car making here, planet hunting, script writing. And if there's something your child would like to do which isn't on offer, they can set it up. There's a big emphasis on service to the community, which, as you might know, is a core part of the IB, and we believe terribly important to develop empathy in the students. And we were pioneers here in the 1970s. Pastoral care is very strong at Sevenoaks, but it's different from other schools like Rugby and Marlborough. And the reason for that is that we have a lot of day students of Sevenoaks. So we have 450 boarders, that's a very good size, but we also have 600 day students. And we really want them to mix seamlessly with each other. So boarders and day pupils have a tutor group first thing in the morning, but then the rest of the day, the students mix. And that means it's easy for boarders to become friends with day students and go and spend weekends with them. And it's just wonderful for day students to be able to go on holidays across the world to their boarding friends too. The house is, of course, still important. It's a home from home. They're very comfortable. You'll see a common room in the next picture, very furnished to a high standard, really cozy, comfortable. And the boys or girls in your house, because they're single-sex boarding houses, will become like your brothers or sisters. But, for example, we all eat our meals together in a central dining hall with anyone we want to. We don't eat in houses. There's a lot of choice because we're feeding 1,200 students plus then all the teachers. And so the food is excellent and very varied. So lots of vegetarian options, for example. Now, on to the end product, the higher education results. Again, you can see a lot more detail about this on the website, but we are known for really outstanding higher education results, both to the UK and the US, where we are an SAT test centre, and we have a couple of staff in our higher ed department who focus entirely on the US university applicants. So we're one of the top feeders to US of schools in the UK. But also, we had 33 offers this year from Oxford and Cambridge, for example, and that put us within the top 10 independent schools in the UK for 2021. As I said, do take a look on the website. In summary, I will just point out the differences or the differences between Sevenoaks and perhaps some other schools that you're looking at. We style ourselves as a modern, forward-thinking and innovative. We are non-denominational and unusual in not having a chapel. We're a global leader in delivering the IB, and we're known for outstanding university entry in the UK, the US, and across the world. And finally, our students are grounded, humble, and down to earth. They're friendly, collaborative, critical thinkers. They're international minded, diverse, tolerant, and respectful. They're academically very well rounded and brilliantly well educated for a successful life in the 21st century. Thank you so much, and do ask any questions and be happy to answer any questions you've got later on.
Thanks so much, Arabella. Niall, could you take over for Marlborough, please?
Thank you very much indeed. I'm afraid my presentation will be very dull compared with Arabella's because I have no pictures. So many apologies for that, but they're all there on the website. So please do have a look at that. Arabella ended on the academic side, which is absolutely crucial. Of course, children come to school to learn, and we're a stepping stone. The passport to the next stage of life are those qualifications that they get at school. So the academic side is really important. Marlborough has a long tradition of being a pioneering academic school in all sorts of ways. At the moment, we have an extraordinary project innovation center, which is not just about how you innovate in science or design or technology, it's how you innovate in any area. So there's been a tradition of progressive thinking in education, but at the same time, we really appreciate the value of traditional education too. Book learning, reading must not be forgotten about. We make a distinction between the academic side and the intellectual side. The academic side is how you get those exam results, but the intellectual side is about everything, about getting young people to make bridges between subjects. And sometimes those examination boards can produce a sort of hermetically sealed aspect to education. And that's one of the reasons why I think the IB is a great exam. We don't do the IB. We used to do it and we really liked it, but we found it didn't quite fit with what we were doing. And when A-levels were reformed, we decided to go down the A-level route. But we made sure that we had the extended project qualification, elective courses. We adopted the whole business of the international world. So we think that we provide something which is very similar in many ways. But it's the clubs, the societies that add the extra icing on the cake, if you like. It's more than icing, it really is the cake, I think, these days, in terms of getting young people to have a really rich education. And it's interesting that Arabella mentioned the importance of the co-curricular. It used to be called the extracurricular. It is so important nowadays that we live in a world where there's much talk about resilience, teamwork. That is what the co-educational, the co-curricular world provides. The world of play, well-being, how to remember, how to react with people. These provide the hard skills for the 21st century. And at Marlborough, we're very fortunate in so many respects. We're a full boarding school. We don't have day pupils. We work 7 days a week. That sounds terrible, but we play 7 days a week. Now, many of the most important lessons can be taught at the weekend, halfway up a mountain in Wales, or a conversation after a match, or the interval of a concert. So it's non-stop education, but the young won't necessarily be aware of the fact that they are learning 7 days a week. We're immensely proud of the fact that we were one of the first great schools to become co-educational. We've embraced the international world. We have pupils from over 260 different schools in our school, from a sprinkling from right the way around the world, and indeed right the way around the UK. And that makes it more interesting. Young people realize that there are so many people that have different stories to tell. They teach each other. They teach their teachers. So that's a very important aspect of life at Marlborough. And it's the pastoral life of the school which glues everything together. The boarding house, everybody thinks they're in the best boarding house, and they're all completely correct. We don't have the academic house, the sporting house, the musical house. Everything is about mixture within the school. We have 6 boys boarding houses, 6 girls boarding houses, and 4 houses which have boys throughout, but there'll be a wing which sixth form girls can join. That's how we started co-education way back in 68. So the pastoral life of the school is reinforced by the tutor system. Every child has their own individual tutor as part of the house team. There's a sort of pastoral hub, the head of boarding, the deputy head pastoral, who works with the chaplaincy. The spiritual life of the school is very important. And we celebrate all faiths. The sanatorium works with all the boarding houses. So we want to produce young people who are resilient, people who will be good leaders, people who will above all be good friends. And I think that's one of the things that Marlborough does best, the gift for friendship, seeing the point of other people, being responsible young people who realize the importance of service, that there's nothing more rewarding than helping people. We're helped hugely by the nature of the site. We're sort of bang in the centre of the middle of England. We're an hour and a half from London, an hour from Heathrow, an hour from Oxford, Bath, Bristol, Winchester, Salisbury. Our back garden is wonderful, wonderful countryside. We have in the middle of the school a 4,000-year-old Neolithic mound where Merlin the Wizard is supposed to be buried. I mean, he's not, but he was. The dates don't fit. But it was the site of a royal castle. It became a stately home, and then a great hotel, which went bust in 1843 when the railway was invented, and nobody came by coach and horses anymore. And at that point, it was decided this would make a fantastic school, and the rest is history. We're helped enormously by having the little town on our front doorstep. The town is our best friend and our best critic. If we get things wrong, golly, do we hear about it. And that helps our young people to be responsible. Our support staff, you never read about support staff in any prospectus, but many of the people who come from the little town have worked in the school for generations. And that is one of the areas in which the school is very traditional in a way, having a life which links it with another community. We're linked with all sorts of other communities, whether it's our own school in Marlborough, Malaysia, or indeed it's schools in India we're linked with and have a long history of relationship with in India. So we have partnerships with schools right the way around the world, and indeed local schools, which are perhaps less fortunate than we are. And then there is the business of the continuing education after Marlborough, because young people are happy there. The alumni is something which is really, really strong. And our old boys and girls, they are in effect teachers too. They come back all the time because they've been happy there, and we put them to work so the next generation can see what they can become. So Marlborough, as with Sevenoaks and indeed Rugby, is a place which is about an education for life. You never leave. That sounds a bit spooky, but it is the case. There's that sense of pride and the sense of gratitude that people from great schools have, which helps them propel them into the future. I think I'll stop there. Sorry about the lack of pictures.
Thank you so much, Neil. Lack of pictures or not, I visited the school and it's an absolutely beautiful place. So that's absolutely wonderful. Guy, if you could take over, please, on rugby.
Certainly. Thank you, Artie. I will find my presentation. Let's go back to... Yeah. So, introducing myself briefly, my name's Guy Steele-Bodger and I'm the admissions registrar at Rugby School. I've been at Rugby even longer than Arabella has been at Sevenoaks, and unfortunately I don't look quite as young and energetic as she does. But it's been a delight for me and it's a place that I love. So Rugby School is situated in the town of Rugby. It's about 45 minutes by train from London and 90 minutes by road from London Heathrow. You can see that it is essentially a small and rural town. We've got just over 850 students at Rugby School. They begin from year 9 and go up to year 13. 200 are day pupils, 650 just over that are boarders. And we work on 50 children in a house, in a boarding house, 10 in each year group. 20% of our students live overseas in more than 30 different countries. And the boys and girls have come to Rugby School from more than 300 different feeder schools. All of our students and the teaching staff live and work in our campus. The boarding house at Rugby is your home. There are 6 boarding houses for girls and 7 for boys. In each house, just over 50 boys or 50 girls live with a housemaster or mistress, a deputy and a matron, so 3 resident staff. Generally, accommodation is shared in the first years, but by year 11, all students will have their own bedsit room. Deep friendships are made through living together in the house. Privacy may be at a premium, but modern technology means it's easy to keep in touch with your family. English language proficiency needs to be excellent right from the start to allow non-native speakers to be able to live, work, and make friends immediately. House dining is a key feature of our boarding model at Rugby School, and all students eat all of their meals as a large family in their own house. Pastoral staff will eat with them, and there's an immediate sense of any problems or changes or issues which will need to be dealt with. So as a housemaster, one of my prime memories is of the community spirit that one engenders by living together, eating together and working together in the house. Members of the house will come from a wide range of countries and they'll come from all across the UK. Boys and girls, of course, get to follow their own interests, but they'll also learn about cultures and social and ethnic backgrounds for a wide range of other children. Through funding, which we've raised separately from fee income, more than 10% of our students come from families now which are eligible for full means-tested support towards fees. And that social inclusivity and the breadth of the cultural and ethnic and social backgrounds is a real feature of life at Rugby School. We do have a Christian ethos and we do have a chaplaincy, but we welcome students of all faiths or no faith. We meet as a whole school community in this building, the school chapel, to start our working day 4 times each week. And each week, one house uses the opportunity to talk to their peers about an issue which is topical or close to their hearts. It's a pretty amazing experience for a teenager to talk in public to an audience of nearly 1,000 people, you certainly prepare carefully for it and you learn from that experience. Our admissions process is based on interviews primarily before we entrance test. What we're looking for, I summarise as the 3 Bs of successful admissions. We're looking for bright boys and girls who will take pleasure from their studies, work hard and enjoy the academic challenges ahead. We're looking for busy boys and girls who will be enthusiastic, purposeful and competitive in whatever their co-curricular interests are. And we're looking for boys and girls who give us the sense that they're ready for the challenges, but also the opportunities which boarding represents. A rich academic life is at the heart of all our educations. I've been in awe of my teaching colleagues over the last 2 years in the way that they have coped with school closures and online learning, but it's a delight for everybody to be back in class at school in person. We're also very pleased to now offer a choice at 16 plus between A-level courses and the International Baccalaureate Diploma. Since this September, we've been offering this choice. We've invested heavily over the last 2 years in people and resources and training to make this a success. And we're delighted with the start that we've made this term. Music is a key element of our co-curricular offering. Our music staff deliver more than 500 individual instrumental or voice lessons each week. We've got excellent practice facilities and wonderful performance venues. This is the Temple Speech Room. What a place to be playing that organ. And sport, another key co-curricular activity in which all students take part. We've got expert staff to run our major team sports, and we do have students who will aspire to become professional players, but there's mostly children who are looking for exercise and enjoyment. Our ethos is that there should be a match for everybody at the weekend with nobody left on the bench. Beyond the main team sports, there's a great range of choices from swimming to badminton, dance, and our fitness centre. So academic results are excellent. There is an outstanding work ethic. We're delighted, as I say, to be offering IB diploma at this stage, as well as A-levels, and we think that this is going to be something that many of our students will want to seize as an opportunity. And I finish with this slide unashamedly, because I think that at Rugby School, the whole person is the whole point.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Guy. Thank you, all of you, for sharing your school with us. So before we move into the question answers, can I just encourage all participants, if you have any questions, please put them in the question box and I will definitely try and address it. Can I just start by, we've got a very interesting panel today because we've got Sevenoaks, which is a pure IB school. We've got Marlborough, which is a pure A-level school, and we've got Rugby, which has got both. So can we just start with Arabella, you just giving us a quick snapshot on the IB and, what does it entail? What kind of student is right for the IB, etc.?
Yes, of course. The IB was developed by a group of educational philosophers in the 1950s around Kurt Hahn, who founded Gordonstoun, and the idea was to consider, if you had a blank piece of paper and you could just reinvent education, to consider how best to educate young people for this century. And it was a sort of an organisation which involved people from different nationalities and different thoughts. But one of the key things was Critical thinking was the idea of developing academic characteristics rather than necessarily it being about knowledge and exams. Within the IB, you take 6 subjects, and you do have, everybody does take certain subject types. So everyone will take English and maths, a science, a humanity, and a language, but not necessarily at a higher level. 3 of your subjects at a higher level and 3 at standard level. And the idea is that you might be a scientist who does physics, chemistry, and maths at higher level, but you'll also be a scientist who can communicate better because you will have studied English, history, let's say, and German at standard level. Similarly, if you're somebody who wants to go on and study law and you do English, history, and philosophy at higher level, you're going to also understand better about numbers and maths through your standard level subjects. There's a core theory of knowledge, which is the critical thinking. There is an extended essay, which prepares you for undergraduate style of work. And then very importantly, the CAS program as well. You get no points for it, but there's a conscious emphasis on fitness for health, also creativity, and service to the community, the development of empathy. So as Guy said, I love that whole person, whole point. I mean, the roundedness is extraordinary. It's not an easy course. It's quite taxing. It's hard work. But we certainly at Sevenoaks feel it's quite a good idea to be working very hard in the sixth form. And there's no doubt that it prepares you extremely well, not only for success at university, but also in the world of work, where of course things shift and change, and you need different skills at different times in your life. So yeah, it's hard, but we think it's a fantastic sixth form education.
Thank you, Arabella. Niall, could you tell us a bit about the A-levels? Just
sure. Well, the A levels, of course, present a more specialised body of knowledge, and the standard sort of diet in the UK is to do three A levels. All our pupils will start off on 4. We don't think 3 is enough, and we encourage the extended project qualification, which is something which is enormously helpful. It often writes the first part of your university application for you and shows that you're an independent learner and capable of showing tremendous initiative. So we really liked a lot of what the IB produced, but we like the sort of the punch which the A levels provide as well. I think what we learned from the IB was really important. CAS, internationalism, theory of knowledge, we've embedded all that into what we do. And I don't think necessarily A levels alone on their own do enough. There has to be something else. And because we're a full boarding school and have the time to have all those things which can enhance A level provision, we decided to stick with it. And I think, heaven knows, the IB has got so many great things about it. We did decide one of the factors that resulted in us stopping it. The exams we felt were just a little bit too early on in the summer term, and with boys in particular, the souffle is just beginning to rise as you go through May, and so we decided to just stick with their A levels in the end. But we learned a huge amount from the IB. It is a superb exam in all sorts of ways, but it's horses for courses, and it's what parents and pupils think will be the best route for them, and it's great that there is that range, that choice that's there.
Great, thank you. And guys, since you just introduced the IB, if you could, just help a parent decide which is the right curricula, what do they look at in a student to take that decision, and if universities have any preferences.
Well, if I deal with the last question first, I think both of these routes are very well respected, both in the UK and internationally. I think that neither of them presents any problem. Both of them are strong routes to tertiary education. But just looking at how you would make a choice, I think one of the key things that we have invested in is providing lots of advice and a chance for children to talk through and understand the choice that they're making. I think that's one of the critical things. But there are some obvious differences. To follow the IB involves new learning experiences. It keeps you going with the theory of knowledge and the CAS program, which Arabella has mentioned. It definitely broadens the curriculum that you're following at 16 plus. Niall has mentioned doing more than 3 subject choices and having other things added on, but that's all built into the IB, so it's a broader curriculum. There's a wider range of options open to children when they're choosing their subjects and choosing what areas they're going to follow. And clearly it's internationally very well respected. So if one is going to apply for universities outside the UK, the International Baccalaureate has a tremendous pedigree. A-levels are going to suit people who look for a higher degree of specialisation and a narrower range of subjects, but they're going to pursue them with greater depth in all probability. It's very well recognised in the UK and well recognised overseas. And Arabella has mentioned, of course, that it probably does involve a greater volume of work during the 2-year courses, and our children will follow 45 lessons per fortnight for the IB course, compared to 42 contact lessons per fortnight for A-levels. So I think one of the key things is advice and information so that children have a chance to make the decision which is right for them.
Thank you so much. You know, I think a lot of you mentioned about just a student being ready to settle down into the boarding school and be ready for boarding. So, I mean, Niall, if I can just ask you to tell me, you know, what exactly do you think are the, you know, the characteristics of a student who you feel is ready to settle into boarding school?
First of all, they've got to want to go.
It's not a parent-driven,
really
right?
is important. And that used to be that parents would say, you are going to boarding school. That won't work now, because the interviews that we have, if we think that a child isn't ready, then they're not ready. And we're looking for that sense of adventure, of young people who are ready to set foot outside their comfort zone and have a go at things. And in all our schools, that's what we want. And young people can sometimes feel, oh, I wouldn't be very good at that. And we'll say, oh, go and have a go, just see what you think. And often they will find actually that that's something which is a passion for life. Or if it doesn't work, well, they still learn from it. And everybody is sympathetic that not everything is going to work. And one of the things that I would emphasize to anybody that's thinking about coming to boarding school, I mean, there will be challenges. There will be times where things don't necessarily quite work. And that's as it should be. We talk a great deal about success and achievement at the school. Well, it's also important to learn how to cope with things when they don't go quite so well. The great thing is when things aren't going quite so well, there will be masses of support there ready and waiting and sympathy. So it's a very humanizing thing in all sorts of ways, boarding now. And it's so different to the way it used to be 20 years ago, because everybody communicates so much more freely and parents will know exactly what's going on. So it used to be quite an isolating experience. That's no longer the case. So we're all looking for people who will have an open mind about what they're going to undertake when they go to boarding school, both on the work front and the co-curricular front, and the really important business of just getting on with people. And I think we'd all say, if we had a super bright, brilliant child applying for us who just was not happy in those other areas, boarding wouldn't be right for them. And I think above all, what one's looking for is a young person who is generous spirited, because generosity of spirit will extend to making sure they get their work done in time for their teachers at the best possible standards, and they'll look after their mates. So that is something which is very important. We're looking for lots of different things in boarders, but they've got to want to do it.
Great. Thank you. So, just in the interest of time, and I know the burning question in every parent's mind is, how do we get into your school? So can we just jump into the admission process a little bit? And Arabella, can you just help us, understand the Sevenoaks admission? So just for all the parents, before we jump into this, two very obvious points of entry and natural points are at 13 plus and what we call the sixth form in the UK, which is actually at 16 plus. And if you could, each of you just quickly run through how do you, what do you look for? What is the application timeline, process, etc. Thank you.
Sure. So what we look for at Sevenoaks is, first of all, our positive personality type. So we're looking for students who will work well together in a team, who will be kind to each other, who have a positive personality type. So, one of the best things you can do is allow your child to play with other children and to develop those really good social skills, and even maybe do some service activities with them, or let them do that when they're younger. We also, the involvement, the open-mindedness that Niall was talking about, the willingness to engage and be part of the community, that's what we're looking for. We don't want students who are just going to be sitting at their desk working to maximize grades. We want them to be really fully involved in all aspects of school life. At Sevenoaks, we are looking for diversity. We have 70 different nationalities represented at the school at the moment. And it's quite tricky to balance international figures. And Indian students are one wonderful group of people to enrich our schools from the diversity perspective. But finally, of course, in order for the students to be comfortable at Sevenoaks, then they need to be able to access the fast pace. If they work like mad and just squeak in, they might find that their academic confidence leaves them because they don't feel quite up to the standards. So it's really important to prepare, yes, for the tests, which for us are in English, maths and verbal reasoning at 13, English, maths, general sciences and general humanities at 16, in addition to the interview, of course. Prepare, but don't over-prepare, because you want to go to the school that's going to be right for you academically. In terms of timelines, very quickly, sixth form entry for 2023, the application deadline is the 1st of August next year. And for 13 plus entry 2023, we're on the deadline now, but you can certainly still be considered for another couple of weeks. So if you want to make an application, just go onto the website and make it. Thank you.
Thank you. Guy, would you like to go next on anything different from the rugby perspective in terms of the timeline and the kind of student?
I don't think that there's an enormous difference in what we're trying to achieve, but we all have slightly different ways of going about it. So for year 9, we will interview children, we will get a reference for them, and we will make decisions based on those elements, and we'll confirm conditional places which are offered by entrance tests in English, maths and reasoning during year 8. At 16 plus, we ask children to sit 3 academic papers that they choose. They're interviewed, we get a reference, and that's how we make our decisions. So essentially it's the 3 elements: a reference, it's an interview to gauge the person, and it's entrance testing to be confident that there's going to be a good academic fit. So that's how we carry that out. We're just about to start our 16 plus assessment for 2022 entry. We generally run this in the first week in November, and we've got a good number of boys and girls either remotely, but I'm very pleased that most of them are going to be here in person next week, and that's going to be a delight.
Thank you. Niall, anything you'd like to add to that?
It's very, very similar to what Guy has said. The deadline for us testing in year 6, the deadline is the 6th of October for year 6 for entry in year 9. We do year 7 testing, and the deadline for that again is October the 6th. And the lower 6th, it's the 1st of October 2022 for 23. And again, it's that mixture of interviews, reports, references, and for entry into the year 9, we ask everybody to do the ISEB Independent Schools Examination Board test, but it's a mixture of everything. And when it comes to the process of admissions, we look at the whole picture. We don't just cream off the academic top. We're looking for lots of different qualities. And one of the things I would say, what we all do is make mistakes in terms of putting people on waiting lists, and when they will be absolutely great. And we say, please keep in touch, because sometimes by the time young people arrive at the school, they can be, and having been on a waiting list, they can be really fantastic. Young children develop at different rates. So we keep an eye on those lists all the time.
Thank you. So again, just for all our participants, this might sound a bit confusing, but in the UK, our grade 5 is called year 6. So it's called 1 year above. So just so you don't get confused, when we're mentioning year 9, we're actually talking about grade 8 in India. Right, thanks so much. I think another question is, what we find in India is that we miss a lot of the deadlines, especially for the 13 plus. Is there any other timeline which you can apply for? So can you apply for year 10? For an occasional spot, if we feel the student is not ready to go in year 9, would anyone of you like to just take that and give us a response? Yeah.
Okay, I'll jump in quickly. We don't have a formal year 10 entry, but people can send in reports and a covering letter outlining interest, because sometimes students will leave from year 9 or they'll move from boarding to day. So occasional spots open up and then we would test. That's very simply what happens at Sevenoaks.
Okay, would that be any different for you, Neil or Guy, or is it just occasional based on?
It's right. The same. Okay. We don't have many places, but we're always interested. But it's the sending the reports and expressing an interest, and we take it from there.
Okay, great. So this is sorry, guys. Is the same for you too?
Yes.
Okay. So there's a question in the Q&A on how competitive it is actually to get into sixth form. So one is what number of applications have you actually got this year? What is the conversion rate? And how do you decide, how many Indians you're taking? Is there any geographic decision making? Any such thing? Would you like to go first, Guy, on that one?
Yes, certainly. The number of applications for 16 plus has been growing over the last 10 years. This year, I think we've got 170 something boys and girls who are applying for places, and I think we will have 35 places for girls, perhaps 15 places for boys. So it will be quite competitive. But in my experience, we don't know what the caliber of the boys and girls applying is. So it's not a level playing field. They are not all as good as each other. And many of them are applying for more than one school. So it's still a very competitive area for schools as well as for families.
Arabella, what about you? Is there any, because I know you take one of the largest intakes in the sixth form. So is there any, allocation geographically or anything?
I mean, it's a question of not having too many from any one national background. So we have a girls and a boys sixth form entry boarding house with 30 boarding girls and 30 boarding boys joining the school at 16 every year. And we probably have about 350 applications for those places. And what we want to avoid is taking too many from any one national background. Now, I must say from India currently, I would say most of the students who've got the personality traits and the academic ability to come probably would actually end up getting a place. But there are some parts of the world where we would have to turn away some absolutely brilliant students, but in the interests of having a really diverse student body.
Well, that sounds very promising for all our clients and for all the participants. Great. So if we can just move on a little bit onto the pastoral care, something that worries the parents in India a lot is the exeat weekends. So if you could just, what is the expectation during exeat? How often is it? And if a Indian parent does not have somebody to send their kids to, what are options? Neil, could you help us with that?
Sure. I mean, the EXIAT weekends are important for the housemasters and housemistresses, right, apart from the young people, they need their sleep. We do have provision for people if they have nowhere to go, then of course they can stay. In practice, though, everybody gets sort of swept up with parents' consent. What will happen is that they go home with friends, but of course it's important that everybody has a guardian in the country. That is important, but sometimes it doesn't work for the guardian, and that's fine. So it's not a problem as far as EXIATs are concerned. We have 2 in the Michaelmas term, 1 or 2 depending on when Easter is, and 1 in the summer. Otherwise, the school is full at weekends.
Okay, and if I could just ask both Guy and Arabella, another worry for the Indian parents is, especially with a school like Sevenoaks, which has 400, day scholars, does it empty out on the weekends? Are there enough students on campus? Because that is a worry we see, a question that comes up fairly often.
Yeah, well, at Sevenoaks, we have 450 boarders, most of whom live abroad, so most of whom are in at the weekends. In fact, those who join at sixth form, nearly everyone is, and in the all-through houses, around about 70% of the students are in. So there are a lot of students. One has to remember it's only Sundays. Our Sundays are a bit different from those at Rugby and Marlborough, which is, our 7-day week schools. We have a lie-in on a Sunday, we have brunch, and then quite a relaxed Sunday afternoon. But nevertheless, there are plenty of people around to go for a walk with. Sevenoaks Town is there. There's a cinema, a theatre. There are restaurants and cafes. There's Knoll Park. Lots of facilities in the houses. So they have a good time. When I was running my house, I found that the students were not lonely and they were not bored. And it was just nice to have a bit of downtime to read or watch a movie or just gather your strength ready for the week ahead.
Would that be any different for you, Guy? I mean, Arabella did mention that you have more people in, but yeah.
Rugby is a full boarding school, so 650 of our boys and girls are boarders. They're all here for 3 weeks at a time, and like at Marlborough, we close when we have an EXIAT weekend. The school closes, so children must have guardians or family members to go to stay with. At the weekends when school is open, every facility is open. If it needs to be staffed, it is. There's a full program of matches and activities, and they're busy, very sociable times for the children.
Thank you. So there is a question, which though I can't think of it, but if there is a sport not offered in your school, can it be started? I don't know which sport that would be, since most of you offer most of the sports. But if there is a student who, let's say, I don't know, I don't think all of you might have a golf course. So if somebody wants to play golf, is there any possibility?
Well, one of the delights at any school is when students take the initiative and tell staff, we would like to add something to the programme. That's a delight. Actually, this has a great history at Rugby School, because rugby football wasn't invented by adults, it was started by children. So lots of our best activities and co-curricular clubs and societies are started by the initiative of our students.
Okay, that's wonderful. And just taking that one step further, if there is a student who wants to play a sport competitively and wants training that's beyond what the school provides, would the school support that? Would the school support a student heading out for tournaments, etc.? Neil, maybe you could help us with that.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, if a young person has real expertise and passion, that will be supported. And the school will be very flexible over that, but it will also have to weigh up whether there will be a significant impact on their academic work. So it's something which needs discussing with parents. The deputy head co-curricular will look at it all. We want to really help anybody with any great enthusiasm, but it just needs careful weighing up. We have people who represent the country in various sort of sports, or particularly musicians who will go off to the Royal College of Music and will take their diploma there. So we can do all that. but all the time it has to be weighed up and watched and monitored to make sure that things aren't getting out of hand.
Okay, great. So, Guy, if I could request you to answer this, how many students do you take in year 9? That's the first point of entry.
How many students? Sorry, I didn't hear that, Artie.
What would your year 9 intake be, 13 plus intake?
We have about between 140 and 150 boys and girls will start in our year 9. Between 35 and 40 will be day students, and 100 and 110 will be boarders, something like that.
Okay, and I think that number is very similar in all the schools. I don't think it's very dramatically different, the overall number, am I correct?
I think Sevenoaks and Marlborough may be slightly larger than Rugby's in.
Okay, okay.
We're 180 in year 9, but we take in 100, and then 80 will have come through from our year 11 and 12-year-olds, but they're all day students. So the boarding starts at 13, and there are 100 new joiners.
Okay, and another question is it necessary to have visited the school before the application process finishes? Or can it, at least given this year, can it all be done virtually?
I think we've learned to do things virtually, but it's always an advantage for the family and for the school if the child and their parents are able to visit. But I'm sure that we would all agree with that.
Wholeheartedly, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. Great. And I think since we did discuss the entry at year 9, if you could also just help us with how many students you take in the 6th form. I think Arabella, you've already mentioned it, but if Neil and Guy, if you could just mention how many do you take?
We're about the same as Rugby. We take about 45 to 50 into the 6th form, 35 girls and 15, 20 boys, something like that, 15 boys perhaps. So it's roughly speaking about 20% of the lower 6th is new, and that's something which is really good. It invigorates those people who've been there for 3 years. It's an injection of new life for the school. So the lower 6th entry is really important to us. And again, we're looking for people from all around the place. We don't have quotas, but for pupils from India, having those pins in the map, they will arrive as teachers. So again, it's that mixture that we're after within the school.
Great. So I want to ask you, as a mom of 2, why is there a partiality towards girls in the 6th form? I'm a mom of 2 boys, so I'm just wondering.
This is a politically incorrect answer, but age 13, I always think the girls are unnaturally well organised, conscientious, diligent, hands up straight away and do exactly what they're asked. It's very odd. Okay. Boys are different, but what happens age 15, 16, they start taking intelligent risks and come up on the inside lane, as it were. And so we have slightly more boys to start off with age 13, but age 16, it's 50-50 in the school.
Okay, great. Guy, would you like to add to that at all? Is anything different?
I would just add that I think, in my experience, demand from parents of girls at 16 plus has been historically higher, but demand for boys is increasing. And I'm sure that at Rugby School, we will increase our capacity for the 16 plus boys entry, because we have so many good applicants, and that is a change that has taken place over the last 5 to 10 years.
That's fabulous. So I think we're nearly on time. So would any of you like to just say something to end about the school, or to any of the participants? We'd be happy to hear it before we close.
Well, I'll just say how great it has been to have the opportunity to talk to some families in India, and I understand across the world. And I'm sure that I can speak to for my other 2 colleagues when I say we really can't wait to be out there in person and meeting people again, and that we would love to invite you to come to our schools as soon as you possibly can.
I would absolutely endorse that. I mean, I didn't go out to India until 2018. That was the first time I was allowed out, and it was just the most marvelous experience. And it'll be great carrying on building those relationships that we have in India, which are growing all the time as a result of the families that we know. So I think it's a very exciting prospect for our schools, the relationship which is growing with India.
I absolutely agree with Arabella and Neil. We can't wait to have more in-person connections.
Great. So Kim, would you like to say something, or should we just?
I just want to thank everyone again for coming, and it's just really been wonderful. And as much as, you know, we'd love to see you here in India, we also want to come and visit your schools. So here's to hoping that we'll all be together soon and introducing some of our wonderful students and learning more about your school. So thank you again so much for joining us today, and have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank